I just saw a headline says RFK Jr. has a prescription for America, which is chaos. And it just occurred to me um, that maybe RFK Jr. was, he's doing just tremendous amount of damage. And I'm trying to think, why is this happening? And I think if there may be a purpose with some benefit in that he is personally breaking our habit of celebrity worship. And I say this, I mean, I was 18 when his father was shot. I remember falling asleep. I had the TV on. It was the West Coast News because it was in California that it happened. But it was way late. It was like 2 in the morning. I remember waking up to hearing something on the TV, and what is it? Can it be the second Kennedy brother was shot? And here's John F. Kennedy and his brother, both on TV. Although it took uh, many years, at least a decade, before Geraldo Rivera, by the way, was put the actual Zapruder film on TV. So the American public never saw just how gory John F. Kennedy's assassination was. But and what kind of history was, and I just John F. Kennedy, R.F. Kennedy, military-industrial complex. He would have avoided the Vietnam War. Um, and one of the things about war and the American people is that I think we don't have a grasp of just how bad it is, how ugly it is. And it's interesting that John F. Kennedy's assassination is what happens in war. Heads get blown off, brains spill out, and we were not allowed to see that. We were not allowed even to countenance that. And sure enough, also with RFK, we have that. So there's this kind of perverse lesson in these grotesque tragedies that we need to wake up to reality a little bit, as a public. And I think we're a little too susceptible to fantasy and performance and theater. And theater's ultimately fake. And there was a discussion in the 60s about how much violence should be portrayed in the arts, in cinema, because it incites. But the precision, the honesty, the truth of what happens, for example, in war is not glory. It's just absolute nightmare. And I think we're, as Vietnam portrayed, we're a little too quick on the trigger here because we've seen a lot of westerns and it looks like one thing and that ain't the reality. So here's RFK Jr. and as much as we love the Kennedy family, I love the Kennedy family. I once, and I think I said this once, I was in Tin Horn, very small town, Westfield, Massachusetts, radio. And Ted Kennedy, the Senator Kennedy, is coming to town. And for some reason, nobody turned out for it. I was the only guy to get to interview him in a private room. I said, wow. And, he came in, and I noticed that when he came in, the first thing he did as soon as he was out of the public eye is that he grasped the back of a desk chair because he was just in tremendous pain. Couldn't have guessed it. He was out there, but he had a plane crash early on, and so there's a really titanic. And Kennedy's associated with Ted Kennedy, big scandal, drunken driving killed a young girl, and so forth, and desperately compensated for it the rest of his career. It just did brilliant work. But this is a little side of it that I only got to see. So I got to see his private, just how much pain he's in. He sits down uncomfortably and so forth. He gives me this wonderful interview. Months go, I don't know, a little later on, he's campaigning. The same thing, he's campaigning, and so one of the city councilors comes up to me and says, they got the guns. So, well, they got the guns. So he gives me this red-hot news tip, which is that somebody was gunning for Senator Kennedy, and they've caught the guy, with his bags packed, ready to go. I, in my misinterpretation of my devotion and emotional attachment to the Kennedys, thought, gee, let me keep this secret because, they don't want to, I don't want to do any disservice to him, unless he says, do this, release the news. And I didn't ask him about it in the first interview. Here's the second interview which I got with him, but I got to speak to RFK Jr. And we're talking about general stuff of the thing, but I don't come up with the guns thing. And then he gets kind of disgusted with me and walks off. Now, if I had known, they probably wanted that in the news. But I didn't do my journalistic job, which is to pursue a lead and perceive it, despite what my emotions are. Oh, it's going to hurt their feelings. I'm going to try to think it's going to look like I'm trying to stir up something and, some kind of lurid headline. They wanted the headline. I overruled it. It never got on the air. I made a big mistake. Why? Emotions got in the way, a little too devoted. I'm not supposed to be so devoted to well, it's debatable, but so devoted. You don't release certain things, but you don't take that type of editorial perspective. At that one time, it was a mistake on my part, a mistake all around. And again, it's because we're tainted with this misconceived love and affection for people we really don't know. They're our leaders, they're celebrities. Oh, they couldn't possibly do anything wrong. And of course, they do. I mean, Geraldo Rivera is another example of a mixed blessing. I knew the guy personally. I can't tell you how important he is to. I don't think he's appreciated as to how important he was to television journalism in terms of in-your-face, real live cameras rolling type of confrontational journalism, which we could use a whole lot more of these days. But he never got the credit, but he's a mixed blessing. You don't get to be that assertive being a sweet, nice guy all the time. There's another side to this stuff. There's another side to all these people that we worship and so forth. And so there's another side to the Kennedy name that, his dad could have saved us an infinite amount of, at least thousands of lives. And his son may be costing thousands of lives. There's two sides to every coin. Every truth, there's the untruth. So there's a lesson in there. Maybe there's a benefit to be had by RFK Jr. I just hope he sobers up.